Morning guys, so today I'm venturing out of my house for the first time since getting back. It is so warm at the moment, it's about 28, 29 degrees, so I'm feeling a bit but I am going to go out. I've had my morning mucka and I've also discovered that those little plate reducers also help me to balance my smaller pots. So I had my porridge and my coffee this morning without any of it falling down the hole in my cooker. So that was good. So today I am going to go for a little bit of a tour of the bike shops in Kigali. So there are three. There's Haojue, Haojin, and TVS. So I think Haojue and Haojin are Chinese brands and TVS is an Indian brand. So I'm just going to go and have a look at what they've got because I would quite like to buy a motorbike and I just don't know what they've got. I don't know what's available and what the price range is. So I'm going to go and just have a little look around, take a few photographs, see if there's anything that I like the look of. In my heart of hearts, originally I was thinking, well, I want a TVS because there's a bit of a bias in me because in Kigali, if you're buying electronics, I tend to always go towards the Indian shops rather than the Chinese shops because the Indian shops tend to be known for better quality products. They tend to create electronics that actually have the UK kite mark kind of standard on them, or they have a British standard mark on them that shows that they are compliant. So I think they import higher quality goods, and as well as a huge Indian community in the UK, so I think there are a lot of trade links there, and that's why we get quite good products. So if I'm going to buy something like a kettle, I will always go to the Indian shops to buy one rather than going to the Chinese ones like Taedu Mill, because last time I bought a kettle from Taedu Mill, it blew up the moment that I plugged it in. So, China also produces really, really high quality stuff, but they don't tend to import it here. So we tend to get stuff for the market that we can financially afford here, and therefore the goods tend to be sometimes questionable quality. But then I was doing some research online and I discovered something that was a bit weird, is apparently Haojue, which is I think the larger of the two Chinese bike companies here, is actually also the owner of Suzuki. And I was like, what? Haojue Holdings manufacture Suzuki and also Haojue. So I think I'm saying it right. I'm sorry if it's Haojue or Haojue, I'm not too sure. But apparently they are related to Suzuki. So even though they might be a lot cheaper in price, I think, they are still manufactured by, a well-established and well-renowned company, because Suzuki bikes are very, very well-renowned, especially in the UK. They're a great brand. So I'm going with a completely open mind today. I'm just going to see what they've got. I'm not going to make any assumptions, and yeah, just check it out. Time to hop on a public motor into town. So welcome to Ichupa Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola bottle in Mamuji in town, and from here we're going to Samir Motorbike Cycles over there, Motorbike Cycles, and that's the TVS shop, and opposite that we've got Haojue, so we're just going to go and have a look. So yes, this is Samir Hussein, who has the TVS motorbike shop, and it's probably the most well-known motorbike shop. If you say, where do I get a motorbike, people say Ichupa Coca-Cola Mamuji, come here. So this is pretty much the selection at the moment. Yeah. I wanted this to be a glossy voiceover video, but I quickly realised that I couldn't stand there taking enough footage to make that work. So I'm just going to talk you through everything. So the first thing that I noticed when I got to Samir's is it's a really small space and there isn't that much of a selection. So most of the shop is taken up with their TVS Star range, which is the bike that I took up to Giseni. Now, there's a lot to love about these bikes. First of all, I mean, from the drive that I went on, it was really fuel efficient, and there's a lot of storage that you can get on there. And also, I really like that great big headlamp at the front, because it's kind of reminiscent of Royal Enfield, which, as a British person, that's kind of got a little bit of a tug on my heart. So I like the way it looks. for the most part. And it was a comfortable ride. So, you know, I do like the TVS Star, but there were a couple of pitfalls with it that I noticed. The first one is that they all seem to be 125s, which is, you know, that's no bigger than a scooter really. And personally, I was just really hoping to find something in, say, the 300 to the 350 range so that I could really comfortably, you know, get up the hills if I want to travel around Rwanda up to the hilly regions, that I'm not going to be struggling with that. Just something with a little bit of power behind it. And also, just on a personal style sort of note, I'm not sure that I'm a fan of those completely flat backs. And the reason I think is, I mean, they are fantastic for storage. You could put a heap of stuff on that and you could transport it wherever you want to go. But just from a passenger perspective, Rwanda is very hilly. You spend a lot of time going up and down hills. And if you're sitting on the back as a passenger, it's got a very, very low grab rail. You know, so if you think about the archetypal moto taxis in Kigali, they've got a high back rail at the back and it's really easy to grab onto that. And I think I prefer something with a bit of a higher back rail. That's just me. I'm just not too sure about the completely flat back look. And just as a fun fact, those archetypal Kigali motors that you see everywhere are traditionally TVS. They're the Victor GLX range, I believe. And when I was looking it up, apparently they say that they're 125s, but I always thought they had a bit more power than that. You know, because they are taking passengers around Kigali. So I don't know any of the other specs. I don't know the horsepower. I don't know the torque, so, but yeah, that's what they used to be. And I'm not sure if they're still importing those because there's a real push now towards electric motorbikes. So there's a company here called Ampersand, and that's where a lot of the new motors are coming from, and they're electric. But traditionally, yeah, they're all TVS. So the TVS is a cute bike. I think the blue one that they had might have been a 150. I'm not entirely sure, but the rest were all displaying 125. So the bike itself is selling for 1,680,000 francs. And at the current exchange rate, that's roughly around £950 or $1,260. Now, those prices will change over time because the exchange rate fluctuates. If you want to know the current prices, you can just type amount FRW, which stands for francs Rwandan, in USD or GBP, and Google will automatically give you the current exchange rate. Or you can download an app like XE. XE is brilliant. I'll leave a link to that below. So the conversion rates I'm giving at the moment are just at this moment in time in September 2024. Now, next to that, I did see a little TVS Jupiter 110, which is a really cute little scooter. And that was weirdly more expensive than the motorbike. That came in at 2,150,000 francs. So roughly £1,220 or $1,600, which I kind of found interesting as to why the scooter was more than the motorbike, but there we are. What I didn't see was the TVS N-Torque, which is a slightly bigger scooter. I think that one's a 125, but the N-Torque is a really nice looking bike. It's got a huge seat to it, so it's very, very comfortable. There's a lot of storage under that seat. So the N-Torque was originally what I was thinking of getting back when I was first learning to ride scooters. That was what I was aiming for. But now, of course, things have progressed and I'm actually looking for a motorbike. So maybe they've sold out, they didn't have it in stock, but keep an eye on that because the N-Torque is a great scooter. The little Jupiter is as well. You know, Samir Hussein is a great place to go if you want to buy a comfortable scooter. And then my eye was drawn to the back of the room. And there was a very sporty looking bike, and when I got up there I saw that it was a TVS Apache. Now it's a 310, so it looks like a really sporty bike, but it's not a big sort of bike, but it's the biggest bike that I had seen that day, and it just really looks the part. I've got a friend who's got one. It's a proper sports bike, so you are leaning forward over the engine, and it's just a really good looking bike. And so of course I was sort of I was looking at the price. This one came in at, let me just check, 5,970,000 francs, which is roughly £3,400 or $4,500. So for a sporty looking 310, I thought that was a fairly nice price. But of course, you know, my eye was drawn to it because that is a sexy looking bike, but for me, it would be completely impractical. I need a bike that can go on-road, off-road, and that I can travel for quite a way on. And often here you're driving along a perfectly tarmac road, and then, you know, you need to go see a shop or visit a friend, and you're down a dirt track like that. So I need a bike that I feel comfortable riding down a dirt track on, and for me, that isn't a leaning forward bike, and it's also not a chopper. It's also not feet forward for me. I like a standard riding position. That's how I feel safest. And also, that's a heavier bike. If I drop that bike, I probably can't pick it up on my own. And so that is not something that I would feel good about taking up and down the winding dirt paths of Rwanda. So it looks gorgeous. If I had a spare 5 million in my pocket that I could just poof, blow away like that, I'd love to have one. But for me, it is not the right bike. Now, one thing to note about the TVS Star is that they all come with 2 free helmets. Now, helmets in Rwanda are not like the helmet that I brought back from the UK. I brought back a Shark, full face helmet, visor, sunglasses. It's, you know, it's a solid helmet. Here in Rwanda, you're more likely to get the open bottomed ones that are just attached with a strap. There are practical reasons for that. They might not be the safest, but it gets hot here. We're on the equator, and in the long dry season, you're going to melt in a big padded full face helmet. So it's a very difficult one because you're trading safety and comfort. It's which one of those are you going to go for? So what you tend to find here is the open bottom helmets, but Samir Hussein's has got a range of other helmets, and it's probably the only place I've seen full face helmets on display, and they are usually Steelbird. So Steelbird is the brand that we usually get here in Rwanda. They don't often have a full range of sizes, so I know it doesn't look like it because you're constantly looking at my face, but I actually have the head of a child. Is for some reason I've got a very small head, so for horse riding helmets and bike helmets I'm usually on the much smaller side, and I've never seen a helmet in my size here. When I borrow a bike, I borrow a child's helmet. So at least now I've bought one in the UK that actually fully fits my head. But here it can be a bit of a problem. So if you're coming to buy a bike from another country, or you want to rent a bike here, bring your own helmet if you can. Bring something that fits you comfortably and correctly. Okay, so I'm going to be honest. There's a reason that I don't really like this shop so much is I've noticed that whenever you walk in, absolutely nobody makes eye contact with you. Like, nobody will come up and ask you if you need help. Nobody will come up and ask if, you know, you want to see the specs or to look at anything. I tried to buy a helmet there once and I just walked out because, again, people behind the desk looked at me, but they wouldn't come over and talk to me. And at first I thought it was because I was female and they probably thought, oh, she's not a biker, because, you know, women riding motorbikes in Rwanda is pretty rare. So I just thought maybe they just kind of dismissed me. But even today, like, you see other people going in, you see men coming in, and their customer service is just totally not registered. Like, they won't go up and talk to anybody. So it's kind of, you know, if I wanted a spec sheet of what they've actually got, I would have to queue and wait and hope that somebody would eventually talk to me, and I just really don't like that level of customer service. But the bikes are very nice. They all look in good working order and everything, but it's kind of, it feels like it's hard work to get beyond looking at them. So Moto Hair editing me here, because after I said that, I did actually go back inside the shop to ask them if they had a spec sheet that I could look at. And there was a little bit of awkward loitering by the reception desk, but then a guy did come and talk to me, and he was really, really nice. He was just very, very quiet. I think he wasn't very confident. But he was really nice, and his eyes had a little twinkle when I asked about the Apache. So he was a really nice guy, and he also explained about insurance and about the plate fee. So I'm going to go over those costs at the end of the video. So it wasn't that he was unfriendly. I think he just wasn't so confident. So yes, that is in complete contrast to the next experience that I had. Okay, so the next shop I went into was Haojue, and these are the Suzuki guys that I mentioned before. Now, what I'm about to tell you was only my experience, and other people might have been to that shop and had a completely different customer experience. So this is only what happened to me, and that might not be representative of the entire company. So just bear that in mind, but I am going to be as honest with you as I can. When I first got to Haojue, I was really happy because it was entirely female staffed, and I cannot overemphasize enough how rare it is to see women riding motorbikes in Rwanda. Like a while back, a woman was in the newspaper for being the only female moto driver in her area. But I think she was the first female moto driver in her area. I have 2 other friends here that drive motorbikes who are foreigners, female, and I have now seen 2 delivery drivers who are female, I think maybe 3, out of thousands and thousands of people who drive motorbikes around Rwanda every day. So it's rare. So to arrive at Haojue and to see a whole motorbike shop staffed by women, I was like, yes! So I arrived feeling really positive about this place. And again, a bit like TVS, when you first arrive, there really isn't a lot to look at. Outside, they've got a bike that kind of looks like the TVS Star. I think that's their version of it. I was kind of going to ask about it, but as I walked through the door, my eyes lit up because I saw this bike at the end of the shop, and I went straight towards it. Oh my goodness. That is a nice bike. Definitely big. Now, I had never seen anything like this in Kigali before, and apparently it's a Haojue RX3S, and it's selling for 7 million francs, which is just under £4,000 and just over $5,000. So that's the most expensive bike I'd seen. It's also sort of the biggest at 400cc. So I haven't seen anything above 400cc in Rwanda, except I think it was 2018. I was shopping at Sawa City Car Wash, and some guy had parked a Harley Davidson outside Sawa City. And I've never seen it before then. I've never seen it since then. But my goodness, was that eye candy. I'm a bit worried about how he gets over the speed bumps, because in Rwanda, speed bumps are notoriously brick-shaped. So I'm not sure how he managed that, but it was a heck of a bike. But just for sale, I've never seen anything over a 400cc. And I was a little bit confused by it, because I think that the S in RX3S stands for a sports bike. But it was kind of kitted out like a touring bike with the boxes and the panniers. So I don't know, I'm a bit confused by it, and I don't know enough about bikes to know what's going on there. So let me know below what your thoughts about this are. Is it a sports bike or is it a touring bike? And can you have a sporty touring bike? I don't know. So of course I was really interested in this, and you can hear me when I walk in start talking to this girl who's sitting on the bench next to the desk, and she was so sweet. And she came up and she stood at the desk and we had a bit of a chat about the bike, but you could see that she didn't know enough about it. She didn't know sort of the power or the specs of it. She didn't know how much the insurance would cost or the plate. And so she was shouting down the shop to another lady who was sitting outside the shop on a plastic chair. And I passed the second lady on the way into the shop but thought nothing about it. But it turns out that the lady sitting outside the shop was really the sales assistant, and she knew everything about the bikes, but she would not get up out of that chair to come and talk to me. So the lady who was talking to me, who was really, really lovely and probably should have been the sales representative, had to keep shouting my questions down the shop to the lady outside, who kept shouting them back. So I'm writing down the information that she's shouting back, and eventually I get to, how much is the plate. I'm just curious. I'm probably not going to buy this bike, but I'm interested in this bike. I want to know as much as I can about it because I've never seen anything like this here. And after asking about the plate number a couple of times, the lady on the chair gives this, she stands up, she strides down the shop, she snatches the pen and paper out of my hand, gives another sigh like the will to live is leaving her body. Now, when she took the pen out of my hand, it wasn't a, can I use your pen? Here, let me write down the information for you. It was literally, give me that. And I was like, whoa, okay. She just snatched it straight out of my hand and then proceeded to start writing down all of the information that I had already written down on the paper. And when she got to the bottom, she still didn't tell me how much the plate was. So I had to ask that question again, at which she sighed again, wrote it down, and I was just in shock. I was sort of, what is happening here? So I took the piece of paper and I apologised for having taken up her time, and I left that shop. And I swear to you, I will never go back to that shop ever. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but that's exactly how it happened. I was a little bit stunned by it. I don't know how many customers Haojue have lost through their customer service. If that is how difficult it is simply to ask about the bikes, imagine what it must be like to have to go there for a service. It's like, here's a spanner, do it yourself, I just thought that was incredible. And, I would like to say that that was a complete surprise to me. But when it happened, I had a vague recollection that about a year earlier, I'd gone in there to get a wing mirror, a replacement wing mirror for somebody's Haojue. And I remember having a fairly similar interaction before. Let's just say that the customer service there was, I'm going to say it, hostile. When I went to the TVS store, the customer service was just a bit non-existent. Not because anybody didn't want to help you, but I honestly believe they're just not very confident at talking to customers. Because the guy there, when I did get talking to him, was really sweet and helpful. But at Haojue, it was almost like she deliberately wanted to get rid of you. I was sort of sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be here, goodbye. So that was just my experience. Maybe other people have been in there and had a wonderful experience. If you have, let me know below. But I will not be going back to Haojue ever. Time to hop on another public motorbike and head across town to the Sonotubes roundabout, where there's a brand new shopping centre with a Haojin motorcycle showroom in. So right off the bat, I knew that Haojin were special. They had got a fleet of tuk-tuks outside the shop that had me questioning my life choices and wondering, should I buy a tuk-tuk? Is this really actually what my life calling should be? Maybe I've been a bit blinkered in my decisions. Maybe I need a tuk-tuk. Now, their slogan, convenient and durable, doesn't exactly get the heart racing, but I appreciate the nod to practicality there. But straight off, Haojin won me over immediately. So you can see when I arrived, there's this little awning, and they'd lowered it because the wind was quite strong and they didn't want it to blow away. So I went there and I just knelt down to take a little look underneath the awning to see what they got. And within maybe 2 or 3 minutes, a customer service representative just ducked down on the other side, bright smile, and said, "Can I help you?" And I was like, yes.
Yes, you can. And I explained what I was looking for, that I just wanted to take a look around the bikes. He showed me inside, and the showroom was so nicely laid out. You could see all of the bikes. And another thing that really, really impressed me was the fact that there was enough space that you could sit on the bikes if you wanted to, because you hadn't been able to do that at any of the other shops. Both Haojue and TVS, all the bikes were kind of squidged together like this, you know. That Apache, I would have loved to sit on that Apache and see what it felt like, but it was squidged in between a desk and another bike. There was no way that you could sit on that or try it out. So immediately I was totally enamored with the showroom and the customer service. So of course I tried this out. First off, coming through the door, on the right, I saw the Haojin Hawk. Now, my friend who has a motorbike rental company, he works with some people who take tours, motorbike tours up to Uganda and down to Burundi, and they've got a fleet of Haojin Hawks. So I was like, oh, I recognise that bike. And of course, I asked if I could sit on it, and he was like, yeah, sure, knock yourself out. So I got on this bike, and I've always heard that off-road bikes are quite tall bikes. They're quite high up so that, you know, they've got good clearance. And I am a solid 5'8", and I swung my leg over and I was on tippy toes. Yeah, I can't ride this.
Yeah.
There was no way I could ride that bike. I was literally on tiptoes, and I'm not a short lady, you know, so that was kind of entertaining, but I was just so happy to sit on it and try it out. And also, big shout out to Eric, who was the customer service representative. He was totally happy for me to take a few pictures, ask questions, and he was really clued in. You know, he knew everything about the bikes, and when he didn't know the answer to a question, he just said, let me just go and ask my manager. And he went off and he found the information and came straight back. And that is pretty rare in Rwanda. Often if people don't know the answer to something, they'll just sort of shrug, or sometimes they'll give you their best guess, which is not always the correct guess. But he was really, really brilliant. He was efficient, he was friendly. Yeah, I genuinely had a good time shopping here. And I was really impressed with the range of bikes they had. They had the flatback models, they had the Hawk, the off-roaders, and then my eyes settled on a slightly sporty looking bike, which turns out to be the Haojin Evo. So the upside on this bike is, I mean, firstly, that was the cutest looking bike I'd seen all day. You know, I mean, the Apache is a sexy bike. This is a cute bike. This is a me-sized bike. It felt like it fit me really nicely. I enjoyed sitting on that bike. I love the shape of it. He told me it's got anti-locking brakes, which is definitely something that I very much wanted. He also said that it's got the British gear system. This is kind of an interesting one, but if you buy usually Indian or Asian bikes, what happens is it's neutral, down for neutral, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 climbing up. Whereas on British bikes, down for 1, up for 2, and there's a half step in the middle where neutral is. So when I drive a bike in the UK, it hurts my brain to begin with, because my little binky, my 125, it's a neutral and then coming up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hi guys, editing me here again. I was about to give you completely the wrong explanation because I hadn't driven Binky for a while. I've just been driving Binky, and actually the way that it works with the Asian bikes is that you're in neutral and you're going down 1, 2, 3, 4. So Binky's got 4 gears, and I'm going down with my foot 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm flicking it to come back up to neutral again. So with a British bike, if I smack my foot all the way down, I'm going to get to 1. But with an Asian bike, if I smack my foot all the way down, I'm likely to get to 4, and I cannot pull off in 4. However, just to say, that does make a small amount of sense, because in the UK we say put your foot down to go faster. So on Asian bikes, when you're putting your foot down, you're going faster. So the price on this is also really nice. It's 2,480,000 francs, which is around £1,400 at the moment, or $1,850. That's not bad, and it is a 200cc.
Now that's good. That's higher than, you know, the 125s and the 150s. That's not quite as much as I would have liked. A 300 would have been nice, but I would take 200. That will comfortably get me from here to Giseni and back, no problem. So that's very, very cool. Now, the only downsides to it that I've been thinking about is firstly, storage, because the flatbacks, like I say, you could put the kitchen sink on that and drive to Giseni, but the more sporty shape, I don't think you can get a box on the back. I need to ask them this. It might be a case I need panniers. I don't really want to be driving around with a massive backpack on all of the time. So for me, storage is quite important. I have a piano repair business. I have a lot of kit that I have to carry around with me. So I do need to ask about that and, you know, just find out what the storage options are with it. But to offset that, again, it comes with 2 free helmets. He also said it comes with a jacket and it comes with a phone holder. So like you've got a few little things here thrown in that are pretty cool to have. And then just back to the downsides, there's a small thing that I'm wondering about is with the tyres. And if you're an experienced biker, I would really like to hear your opinion on this. Because like I say, I mean, most of the time I'm going to be on a really well-surfaced road, no problem, proper tarmac. But as you've probably seen in my previous videos, both when it comes to fixing pianos and just for entertainment value, I often end up on real mud roads. Now, this bike doesn't feel too heavy. I kind of feel like if I drop this one, I could probably pick it up on my own. But the tyre bothered me slightly because just looking at it, it looked to me like the tread is quite thin. So in the UK, thinking about the biker theory test, you're supposed to have a minimum of 1mm tread across 3/4 of the wheel and all the way around. And when I was looking at this, I don't know, give me your opinion. I mean, it must be road safe because it's being produced by, you know, a proper motorbike company that wouldn't be selling unsafe motorbikes. But I was just looking at it thinking, you know what, the tread on that looks real subtle to me. And I just wondered about taking that off-road because the off-road bikes that they have, which are the flatbacks and the Haojue Hawk, they've got proper off-road tyres. And those don't have an inner tube in them, so you can't technically puncture those, I think. I think they're puncture proof, whereas the ones on the Evo have got an inner tube, so you can puncture those. I don't know what to think about it because I know that my little Binky, I've been off-road everywhere on Binky, and Binky I think has also got an inner tube and I've never had a puncture. So I don't know. I assume that I can off-road on the Evo the same as I can off-road on my Binky scooter, but I would like some opinions here. I don't want a dirt bike because I also do most of my driving around on a tarmac road, and I don't really want to go scrambling or motocross or anything like that, but I do want to be able to get off-road now and again. So I don't know. I don't know enough about motorbike tyres to know exactly what I'm looking at here or what the answer is. So if you know more about motorbike tyres, give me your opinion below. Do those tyres look okay? Okay, so I said that I'd wrap up this video by telling you about the other costs involved with buying a bike. The first one is insurance. Now, in Rwanda, we follow sort of the French insurance system where, providing that the vehicle itself is insured, anybody with a driving licence can drive it, which is in contrast to the British system. In Britain, it's not the vehicle that's insured, but the individual. So unless I am specifically named as a driver on a vehicle, I can't just get into anybody's car in the UK and drive it. Whereas here, I can. So it's a lot easier to get insurance in Rwanda, and when you purchase the bike, they can sort out the insurance for you. But it's only basic third-party insurance. So third-party insurance is pretty much what everybody in Rwanda has, and it's really, really affordable. Whereas if you ask about fully comprehensive insurance, comparatively, you are talking like 3-4 times the cost. When I asked about insurance, both Haojin and Haojue, so both of the Chinese brands, were quoting me 62,500 francs per year for insurance. So you're looking at about £35 or $46 for insurance, basic third party for a year. TVS came in ever so fractionally cheaper at 62,310. So there's really nothing in it. So £35 or $46 a year will get you third-party insurance for your bike. Now, I did ask at TVS and Haojin how much it would cost for fully comprehensive insurance, and neither of those two retailers could tell me off the top of their heads what fully comp would cost me. But at TVS, the gentleman hazarded a guess at around 400,000 francs a year. So that would be around £223 or roughly $300. So comparing sort of £42 with £223, that's a massive difference. And you can see why almost nobody chooses fully comprehensive. But again, you've got to weigh how much your bike is worth against how much the extra insurance would be worth. And I will have to do some number crunching later on. So the only other cost that's then associated with buying your motorbike is registering the license plate on the bike. And to register the license plate, again, the retailer can help you to do that. And that costs 75,000 francs at TVS and Haojue, and 78,000 at Haojin. So again, fractional, there's barely anything in it between retailers. So 75,000 francs to do that works out as roughly an extra £42 in British money and $55 in American money. So, you know, not so much there. You're looking at about £35, $46 for your insurance, £42, $55 for your plate registration, and you're done pretty much. So that's what I learnt today whilst I was wandering around town, looking at the different bikes. I am absolutely sold on Haojin, which is the outlier. When I began this video, I was thinking TVS, maybe Haojue, because, you know, they're bigger names. But what sold it for me at Haojin, first and foremost, above and beyond, the customer service there was just joyful. You know, it was really nice. I felt in safe hands. The guy was answering my questions. He's had a smile. He was enjoying shopping. I was enjoying shopping. It was fun. And the way that the showroom was laid out and getting to actually sit on the bikes and feel what they are like, it just made it for me. I was really, really impressed with Haojin, and I am 90% sure that I want to buy the Haojin Evo. They had it in orange and white, and they were all sold out of black. But they're getting another shipment of black Evo in October. And I have asked them to give me a call when they've come in, because I think that's the one that I would like. I'm quite lucky at the moment because my friend is lending me a bike until I'm ready to buy my own. So that gives me just a little bit more time to go around the shops just to keep looking and make sure that this is the bike that I want before I buy it. So if you've got any thoughts on what we've looked at today, let me know below. And if you've been bike shopping in Rwanda, let me know what you bought and let me know how it went. And yeah. It's been fun.